The butler did it. The folder in his hands is an intriguing one, despite the fact that he had already gone through it several times. It was going to be the main body of a report to Admiral Cistern, but it was still something that was just plain odd. The cults and secret societies and dark gatherings and whatever silly name you insist on putting on them were all to the last fervently followed. It was not a question of if, but which organizations a native was part of. Even the incredibly mild and friendly Mother Clatterhooves was part of several secret societies. On the surface, the entire planet was an utter cesspit of corruption and stupidity. Just below it, however, there was an air of almost wholesomeness, as the vast majority of these secret societies were simply clubs and friend circles rather than actual conspiracies. They merely acted the part. The whys of it was still beyond him. There were public advocacy groups, there were concerned citizens initiatives and volunteer organizations and open clubs, but there were also an obscene number of these secret societies that do the same thing, just less efficiently and with bizarre rules and dress sense. Often less efficient because they were secret with uniforms and bizarre rules. He says nothing as he enters Admiral Cistern's office, and then simply waits for him to finish with his latest bit of paperwork and official forms. It looks to be a requisition for salvage rights on abandoned space stations and their infrastructure from parts of the galaxy that are no longer close to the axiom lanes, as the large sections of energy somehow attuned to the concept of movement itself naturally move over large periods of time. Of course, moving the things would be a big problem, but from the look of the contract, there are several organizations looking to clean up space, as if that were a thing, and they would be paid to take and reuse the abandoned and forgotten stations. All in all, a slam dunk, albeit one that would take some time to be fully realized. Hello, Sir Philip. Thank you for not sneaking in today. I was under the impression that you were getting somewhat exhausted of my more boyish side. Sir Philip notes with a bit of a grin. It is important to feel young, Admiral Cistern says before signing the last few pieces. It looks like a fair number of boys would be monitoring a series of tugs to drag the disused stations to be nearby cruel space and then repaired. It would likely be a bit of a gold rush for Brule, with its many technologically inclined young women looking for work. Here you are, sir. This is our mildly more comprehensive report on the sheer amount of conspiracy that this cesspit of a planet operates under. And here I thought the House of Lords was an overindulged pardon. It's not placed to say, Sir Philip remarks as he hands the folder over. Red tabs are urgent, yellow is worthy of notice, and green are merely more akin to window dressing than an actual threat of some kind. I see, Admiral Cistern says as he moves his paperwork into the outbox and opens the folder. There's an entire grouping based around religious organizations, I see. Yes, sir. Religious schisms and mad zealotry are not unique to humanity. There are also numerous terror organizations that we've identified and anonymously reported before they could get off the ground. They're near the back of the urgent listing. I doubt we've seen the last of any of them, Sir Philip remarks, and Admiral Cistern remarks. A fair assessment. Organizations with more damaging goals are often organized in a cell-based manner. There are always at least one or two sleeper agents whose entire goal is to rebuild the cells if the main body is taken down, Admiral Cistern remarks as he flips through the red section. Several slave-taking organizations, known extortionists, terrorist cells, extremist offshoots of already extreme religions. You and your department certainly have quite the spread of entertainment laid out for you. Indeed, sir. Although I will be having our agents cut their teeth on the yellow and green societies first, Sir Philip remarks, and Admiral Cistern nods. That's just good sense. You have to make sure they can at least swim before you throw them in with the sharks, Admiral Cistern notes. This one is under neutralized, yet it states that it was going to be targeting Agent Jameson. We've undertaken a decapitation strike, and while we have yet to have the justification to outright execute the leader, we were able to intimidate her fairly thoroughly. She will at the very least be having nightmares for several months and will likely be seeking counseling in the future. I see. I'm going to ask to not be told the details in case this becomes some kind of hot-button issue in the future. Otherwise, keep me up to date, please. Admiral Cistern orders and Sir Philip nods. Of course, sir. Excellent. Now I would like to hear your recommendations for deep agents in areas other than Centris. It's only a matter of time until we get well and truly entrenched, but while this world is a political capital, it lacks the infrastructure and manpower to properly administrate the entire galaxy, meaning that we will need eyes in many places in order to properly understand the movements of the galaxy. Sir, even if every single human and every single as of yet unborn human child and human-blooded alien child were to be already recruited and fully trained as an infiltrator and spy master to my own level of expertise, there simply isn't enough of that for that scope of espionage, sir. I would care to remind you, sir, that the galaxy is very, very big. I am aware, but there are many, too many to be honest, but a fraction of the larger political nexuses in the galaxy might be doable. Admiral Cistern remarks, and Sir Philip wrinkles his nose as he tries to consider the sheer logistical nightmare that was presented to him. I must decline, sir. Even with the manpower and competence required, such a task would spread our resources and ability to respond to one another far too thin for any kind of practical use. Even our best entrenched and safest agents are effectively behind enemy lines in the midst of a war for all the resources and support they possess. Not an ideal circumstance for any infiltration cell. True enough, there's also the fact that there are extremely powerful individuals and organizations that are testing us. Granted, many of these tests seem to consist almost solely of observation, however, when that changes, there is going to be a great deal of problems to deal with. I suspect that the events that have created Sergeant Jasper Blue out of Sergeant Horace Blue's mental scan to be one such test. It is odd enough to likely be such a scenario. There is nothing to be gained from such a strange set of circumstances beyond sheer amounts of data. Sir Philip notes before shrugging ever so slightly. In all likelihood, there are numerous personal reasons why the events on Lacran have occurred the way they have occurred. If they wanted to see a human's reaction to such a scenario, then they would have cloned Sergeant Blue in his entirety and not simply placed a replication of his mind in another body. To get back on track, there are very few, if any, organizations with that level of power in this folder. In truth, everything we can place in the green section can more or less be safely ignored. Admiral Cistern notes as he rifles through them. In fact, we could possibly encourage some of our men to openly join a few of these. They're just special interest groups, concerned citizens, or outright hobbyists with a few more hoops to jump through. It would help with acceptance and integration. That would be a way to make our men more acceptable and sociable. We've circulated everyone out a few times, and most of our men have had relationships with the women. There's going to be a baby boom, very soon. Sir Philip notes and Admiral Cistern nods. Yes, and while the galaxy may not expect men to take too much a part in the rearing of the children, I don't think the men will want to simply abandon their children. In fact, I can almost guarantee that they won't, as one of the major tests I placed on these men was psychological. These are good people with strong moral cores. They will want to be there for their children. All of that will then lead to a second generation and a greater acclimatization of the galaxy to human men. We will have to encourage a type of generational loyalty to bring in the children and grandchildren of our soldiers. Make it a rite of passage. Sir Philip suggests, and Admiral Cistern lets out a slight hum as he considers the situation. Something to consider, yes. But first, we need to ensure that the undaunted will last. We have some political power. It's mostly a gift from those who are pathologically compelled to help men, but there's also the fact we need to consider what to do when it wears thin. I've managed to secure plenty of stock in numerous companies. It's allowed us a great deal of bankroll and is easily paying the salaries of our soldiers and all of our research. But we must expand and grow. We need to stabilize and advance. "If I may, sir?" Sir Philip asks, and Admiral Sister nods. "There may be a methodology that might be of use. How familiar are you with the wealth distribution of the spires? Are we talking about from spire to spire or the general trend on individual spires?" "The second, sir. The further down you go, the less natural light there is and the more room is taken up by the infrastructure for the upper spire. Lower and lower qualities of life until you reach vagrants, the homeless and widespread criminal enterprises on the lowest levels and the ground. Some even go deeper into the underground. The sheer strength of the pylons reaching into the ground leave little room for more beyond maintenance tunnels, but there are a great deal of urban legends about them. Most of them seem to be nothing more than rumor and speculation. Alligators in the sewers, sir? And stories of serial killers, lost civilizations, hidden treasure. Whatever kind of silly rumor you can think of, there's some kind of rumor of it. But back to your point, the further down a spire you are, the poorer you are in general. What about it? Are you suggesting we become a pipeline upwards? Just keeping your mind open to the possibilities. Many women down below live lives of desperation and could very easily be strong recruits. We don't get the highest quality recruits if we look in slums, Sir Philip. At the moment, sir, we need troops in general. We need a wider selection before we can afford to be picky. We won't get only battle-hardened pirate queens waiting for an excuse to go legitimate. Our men are trained to a standard that are very hard to replicate in the galaxy at large, with only warrior cultures and organizations being able to match us. We can't have only the elite, but we can encourage the dregs to polish up until they're at least acceptable. If our outreach in Zalwar is anything to go by, we first need to get past the assumption that we're operating nothing but a dating service with extra steps. We have, however, had a great deal of success in the male population, as many of them first see it as a strange men's club and then quickly grow to appreciate the purpose they find with us. Sir Philip remarks, and Admiral Sister nods. That may almost be enough. Of course, it's unlikely that we're going to get a proper undaunted out of every male recruit. But even if it's a single percentile of the men in an area, it's a significant enough number of them that we may very well have a proper army coming in. 1 in 10,000 people being part of the undaunted may sound small, but it's an enormous recruiting pool. We can't do everything at once. The waiting may be excruciating, but it's an important part of building and growing an army, Sir Philip says. That is the issue. We know what we're doing, but there's so many not yet so far that it seems like we're getting nothing done. Time is the great enemy, no matter how much you have. Incidentally, sir, were you thinking of taking a restorative coma? I understand Lady Tikanped has been hinting at it. She has. I'm intending to do so. However, I'm looking into a variant that allows me to remain as refined looking as I am now. I don't want to become unrecognizable to my own sons. I understand, Sir Philip says as he considers things himself. He too has no desire to suddenly be a child again. After all, true maturity doesn't seem to start until 60, but the strength of youth with the refinement of age, it is tempting. He won't himself, at least not unless there is a need for it.